Well folks, just when you thought international relations couldn't get any more like a particularly stressful episode of a reality TV show, buckle up, because former President Trump has done it again. He dropped a bombshell. A massive 50% tariff on most goods coming from the European Union. Yes, 50%, that's not a typo. This surprise package was initially slated to ruin everyone's summer starting June 1st, 2025. It sent shockwaves across the Atlantic, faster than you can say transatlantic trade turmoil. But wait, there's a plot twist. Just as everyone was bracing for impact, an extension was announced. The tariffs are now delayed until July 9th, 2025. This came after a call between Trump and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Trump announced on Truth Social, "I agreed to the extension. July 9th, 2025. It was my privilege to do so." Is this a genuine chance to reach a good deal, as von der Leyen hopes? Or is it just like hitting the snooze button on an economic alarm clock? Only time will tell. This isn't Trump's first tariff rodeo. He'd previously threatened a 20% tax on EU goods back in April 2025. Then, that was paused, with a more modest 10% baseline tax lingering. But 50%? That's a different league of economic belligerence. It's like he looked at the previous threats and thought, you know what, this isn't causing nearly enough widespread panic. Let's double it and add a bit more, just for kicks. And what happened when this news first broke? Predictably, the markets did their little panic dance. Stocks wobbled, investors fretted, currency traders probably spilled their coffee. So, why the sudden urge to slap Europe with tariffs that could make a Viking wince? Trump has offered a few justifications. First up is the EU's value-added tax, or VAT. He claims it's unfair to the good old US of A. VAT is a consumption tax, common in most countries. But in the Trumpian worldview, if it's European and sounds complicated, it's probably a scheme to rip off America. Next on his list of grievances are Europe's new digital taxes. These are designed to make US tech giants like Google, Apple, and Amazon pay their fair share in Europe. Trump, who has often railed against big tech censorship, now finds himself their unlikely champion. How dare Europe tax colossal data-hoovering monopolistic behemoths, seems to be the sentiment. And of course, no Trump trade tirade would be complete without the golden, oldie alleged currency manipulation. He's accused the EU of fiddling with their currency to gain an unfair advantage. Finally, there's the evergreen issue of the US-EU trade deficit. Trump blames this on what he calls unfair EU policies, particularly concerning cars and agricultural products. Now you might think the European Union would just roll over and say, oh dear, more tariffs? Do carry on. But you would be hilariously wrong. The EU is preparing a retaliation package, and it's not chump change. We're talking a cool 100 billion euros. That's enough money to inflict a lot of very, very targeted economic pain. It's Europe's way of saying right back at you, buddy. So, what's on this 100 billion euro revenge shopping list? The EU is being quite strategic, aiming for products that will really make America feel the pinch. Think iconic US brands. They're talking tariffs on US-made cars, so your Fords might get a bit pricier across the pond. They're looking at aircraft, which could mean turbulence for Boeing. And yes, they're even targeting Harley-Davidson motorcycles. But wait, there's more. The EU isn't stopping at just big-ticket items. They're also considering tariffs on quintessentially American products like Kentucky bourbon and other whiskeys. And, in a move that strikes at the very fabric of American casual wear, they're looking at blue jeans, like Levi's. The EU is also gearing up for legal battles at the World Trade Organization, WTO. EU Trade Chief Maros Sefcovic put it quite bluntly, warning, "You hit us, we hit you harder." Section 4. Tech Titans in the crosshairs, Big Tech's transatlantic tightrope. Caught squarely in the middle of this escalating economic food fight are the tech giants. Yes, those lovable digital behemoths like Google, Apple, Meta, formerly Facebook, and Amazon. Europe has been increasingly assertive in trying to regulate these companies and make them pay more tax, through things like the Digital Markets Act. These new digital taxes are one of the very reasons Trump cited for his tariff tantrum. So big tech is basically the rope in a very aggressive game of transatlantic tug-of-war. One of the biggest concerns for these tech companies is the potential impact on data transfer deals between the United States and the European Union. These agreements are the invisible plumbing that allows your data to flow freely and legally across the Atlantic. If these deals collapse under the weight of trade tensions, US companies could face billions in fines. It could fundamentally change how the internet operates. Suddenly, your ability to seamlessly use your favorite apps and services could become a casualty of this trade war. Donald Trump, who has spent years accusing these same tech companies of bias, is now effectively going to bat for them. The broader implications for the global tech sector and digital trade are genuinely worrying. Section 5. Economic Armageddon, or just a flesh wound. Brace yourselves, folks. So what does all this huffing and puffing and tariff threatening actually mean for the economy? Well, the early signs aren't exactly encouraging. When Trump first announced his 50% tariff brainwave, stock markets on both sides of the Atlantic did a little wobble. The S&P 500 fell. The Nasdaq, home to many of those tech giants we just talked about, also dipped. The Dow Jones Industrial Average shed a couple of hundred points. It was like the markets collectively sighed and reached for the antacids. Over in Europe, the reaction was similar. Germany's DAX, France's CAC 40, and Italy's main index all took a tumble, dropping around 1.5% to 1.7%. The broader Stoxx 600 index, which tracks European companies, also fell. Shares of major companies like car makers BMW and Stellantis, banking giant Deutsche Bank, software firm SAP, and luxury goods purveyors L'Oreal and LVMH all saw their values decline. Economists warn of higher inflation, slower economic growth, and further supply chain disruptions, and there are serious concerns about a possible recession in the Eurozone. The big question is what this means for the future of US-EU trade relations. Are we heading into a prolonged period of economic trench warfare? Can diplomats find an off-ramp before that July 9th deadline? This isn't just an economic story, it's about the stability of the Western alliance.